So the astrology of 2 May 2022 through 8 May 2022 has us in this land between eclipses, this space where reality may be a little bit more strange and more faded than normal. And it's a nice waxing moon cycle this week where we can kind of grow into this new reality that is emergent. We get some interesting changes in the sky as well, namely Venus enters Aries to kind of impassion us maybe a little bit more than we have been up into this point. So let's jump into the charts, let's jump into the sky. My name is S.J. Anderson. Welcome to my channel, welcome to this video, welcome to the weekly astrology content that I put out every week. And yeah, this is just how I was thinking earlier, you know, how's your eclipse season going? How was your eclipse? I mean, it still feels very eclipsey, let's say for me. I mean, the eclipse were less than 24 hours as I record this from the perfection of that solar eclipse. And how was your day? How was your day leading up to that eclipse? I know for me, it was quite nice. I actually do enjoy the eclipse energy, the dreamy nature of reality, the kind of sense of things. What's the Radiohead song? Everything in its right place. I feel that a lot during eclipses, where it's just things are kind of cohering as they should be cohering, and it feels very, very nice. I also enjoy the sense of kind of release into reality. Fate, you might call it, just the notion of fate, that fate is arriving, that the timing is right. And so it was very nice for me, this kind of dreamlike spaciousness that I was able to enjoy some. And yeah, there was some energy exertion and just feeling a little bit tired or wanting to rest. And I really like that too, giving myself permission as a result of eclipse season to rest and settle. The eclipses can be kind of a nice excuse to turn down a little bit and to maybe not be as active. So I always enjoy that. And then, you know, I've been really busy today and I'm getting to the video a little late. So I think I'll be able to get it out at a decent time. But, you know, that's part of the eclipse story too, or at least mine, is things being a little bit unwieldy, not being able to manage as well, and things just kind of running their own course and me being along for the ride. So anyhow, I hope your eclipses are starting off well with the solar eclipse in Taurus we've just had, and I hope you're managing whatever change or changes have emerged for you in your eclipse story. Let's jump right into these charts. This week I've got three main themes. My first theme is Venus entering Aries to front run a stellium there in late May. And this is where Venus is less stable. And so it could be a important change for those of us depending on Venus right now, where Venus leaves Pisces, where it's quite comfortable, and enters the domain of Aries, where it is less stable. I'll talk all about this stellium in late May and what this week may be setting up. The second major story, Venus into Aries happens on Monday, 6:10 in the afternoon or in the evening, 18:10 in Central Europe. So we've got this arriving right away, right out of the gates this week. We'll be confronting with, managing a Venus in Aries, a very hot Venus in Aries. Second major story is this Cancer moon that is going to emerge here midweek. The Cancer moon arrives on, Thursday, 1 a.m. in Central Europe. We'll have the moon entering Cancer. I love this Cancer moon. I think if I were to do elections during eclipse season, I would be looking at this Cancer moon to do some initiation. You know, a cardinal sign as an initiation. The cardinal sign of Cancer can be an initiating force. But I say it also provides a sense of nurturance and the opportunities to kind of initiate around nurturance mid-eclipse season. And if you're still in a resting mentality, a good time to maybe do some reorientation and some reconfiguration around rest and comfort. So that happens here Thursday, 1 a.m. in Central Europe through Saturday at 13:49 in Central Europe, or 1:49 p.m. is this lovely Cancer moon. And then the third major theme or story this week is this Sun sextile Mars aspect that happens on Saturday, 11:47 or 11:47 a.m. So right around noon here in Central Europe. And I like that this is happening in the two of the major houses that are in focus during eclipse season, Taurus and Pisces. So the houses that we just experienced eclipses, in Taurus with the ruler in Pisces. And then this next eclipse that comes, not this week, but next week, will be also ruled by this Mars in Pisces. So there's this aspect, it comes at the right time to, empower our eclipse story and our eclipse season story. So that's what's on my radar this week. And I'm not going to walk through, I guess I could look at this, we could go through. I'm just going to leave it at these 3 stories. I think it's nice to kind of redact the week into some major stories and not really feel the burden of having to go through everything. And you notice, this has come up in some conversations with astrologers recently, but it's like, what do we pick to focus on? I mean, there's asteroids. There's asteroids. I think Nessus is in Pisces, I believe. It's just something I see on Twitter, people talking about, get Nessus out of Pisces. I think I saw a tweet. And so people are really focused on that astrological data point. I mean, there is so many data points. Neptune is still close to Jupiter. Neptune is close to Mars. Mars is going to apply and conjoin Neptune, I think, next week. That could be a whole story or a whole video, So astrologers have to pick. They have to redact and make, extract from a data set, redact things, and then move into a creation, which is the message of their astrology. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's what artists do. That's what writers and thinkers and anybody who's conveying ideas, it's about, redaction and editing to, again, communicate an idea. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to focus on these 3 stories. And I think some of the other ideas, things may come up here, but let's just go into the first chart. 2 May 2022, 1811. Here in the Western Balkans, Monday, right out of the gate, we get a big, big deal. Venus shifting into Aries. And Venus has been in Pisces. It's added, I think, a sense of comfort, pleasure, beauty to the last 3 weeks. If, I know they've been tough for you potentially, and eclipses are hard, and there was a bunch of difficult aspects with Saturn and Mars and that fixed T-square that we came through. Then we got Mars into Pisces, which maybe was rambunctious and kind of added took away some of the pleasure maybe, or made it less comfortable. But still, there was a Venus in Pisces. And that conjunction on the last eclipse, Venus and Pisces in that 27 degrees of the 28th degree, was very pleasant. I felt it strongly. I could feel the beauty of life. I could feel this sense of being kind of satisfied at a greater level and seeing the handiwork of the divine, These types of Venus and Pisces themes, enjoying music, thinking about movies and film and art. I mean, I was sort of saturated in those things. Now we move here, and this Venus is something astrologers will say, Venus being in its exile. So Venus being in a place opposite of its home. And, how comfortable is it to be away from or in the opposite feel of where you're comfortable, where you've been arisen out from, right? The comforts of your home, the analogy I often use, home language, home city, the back streets, the shortcuts, where to get the best food, you know how to thrive in an environment if you spend a lot of time there. Well, what if you're thrown across the world, a place where there's no language abilities, where everything's in a different, configuration. You may be targeted for scams, you may not have the ability to be as savvy or to sort of capitalize / maneuver within a given environment. Well, that's what Venus, we might say Venus in Aries is. It's away from home. And so it's uncomfortable. And these are the keywords I've written here: impulsive, passionate, and moving with the moment to embrace what feels good. What Venus is again, beauty and pleasure and comfort. And I think that the best way often to know what is pleasing and to understand what may be pleasing is to really sit with what provides pleasure. You see people talk about this in like the any kind of like the tantric world, or the world where people are engaged with like the bringing awareness to pleasure, in this case like physical pleasures of the body, where there's an idea to deliberately be with and feel something in a kind of slower paced way in order to fully experience its richness. And this might be something like a Venus in, I would say even Venus in Pisces, even though it is a mutable sign, there's still something about being with being with the moment and letting it kind of wash over one. Or certainly Venus in Cancer, I think about it in that way, where you have the water energy, you know, to think about like a bath. You don't just get in and get out. You really want to sit in the bath and get the bubbles and get the bath bombs and get the, you know, the warmth of water and let that water cool. But you can be with it over a period of time to really enjoy its comfort. Well, that's not what Aries is. Aries is certainly not a sign of saturation and awareness over a period to sort of bring a deliberate kind of experience of an event or whatever we're thinking here that is pleasurable or beautiful. Aries is a fast-paced energy. It is making a decision and moving. It's a breaking away from or breaking out of. You know, the Aries would be like the 2-minute shower, then get the clothes on and get shoes on and out the door. You know, it's not it's like, oh, well, I'm going to walk through the gallery. I've done this, by the way. The one time when I was in Paris years ago, I had a few hours before my train or flight. I think it was my flight. And I ran to the Louvre and just ran through it. So I've been to the Louvre. I saw the Mona Lisa. I just kind of ran by and saw it and left. And that juxtaposed that to the crowds of people that were staring right into that Mona Lisa, almost like a mandala or something. They were gazing into it to let the Mona Lisa kind of gaze back and really have a relationship to that work of art. That's not what the Aries energy is going to be. And so what I have here, you know, this is a kind of downside. It's like we're moving with the moment to embrace what feels good, but you know, there's also a quickness to abandon something if that changes. You know, when we think about relationships with Venus and Aries, we think about maybe there's the high of the initial phase, the falling in love phase, or that eros phase. And then when that shifts and you have to kind of reorient with a partner, and there's, you know, other things are discovered and maybe it's not as pleasurable, you know, or there's waves and shifts and flows in relationships like there always is. The Venus and Aries energy might not want to stick around for that. And that is the kind of downside of riding one pleasurable spark to the next. There's something that can be missed. There's large chunks of the pleasurable experience that is overlooked or abandoned because of this need to satisfy that next hit of a dopamine rush that Venus and Aries can imply. So this is kind of the downside. It's the exile of Venus. And it can be wonderful too. I mean, I think that the Aries energy and having a fire Venus, it can provide that heat and spark. You know, you talk about some relationships, and I'm focused on the relationship side of Venus here. Venus can signify many things, but some people, they'll say, well, the spark is gone. Where did that spark go? And then they will try to do things to reignite a spark in a maybe stagnant marriage or relationship. And so there's great things about, you know, seeking that immediate fire and spark in a relational context. And this doesn't have to be romantic. It can be even with friends, or, you know, let's say you're on a coffee date with a friend and the conversation for a second lulls. Well, what's that new topic of conversation that's going to get the engagement back? And that might be the Venus in Aries. It's like, oh yeah, I remember I wanted to ask you about this, and then boom, it's flowing again. So it's a good energy too. I mean, every placement, every planet, and every sign in its expression has this continuum of up, positive, and so-called negative. And so I like to think about every planetary energetic expression as what is the opportunity. And Venus in Aries certainly does have a wonderful opportunity there. So let me see what else I have in this slide. In this chart, Venus is averse to Mars and Jupiter for much of this transit. It's not until the 11th of May, so 10 days, that Jupiter will join Venus. So we'll have this whole week, and then into some next week, where Venus is kind of alone here, and there could be a sense of disconnection without any helpers. The only planet Venus is aspecting is Saturn in Aquarius, which is a colder and a disconnected energy, and that's making a sextile to Venus. And maybe that actually can help ground the Venus. If there's a sense of wanting to act on impulse, we've got Saturn, you know, reminded us, like, hey, is that a good idea? Hey, is that a long-term good idea? You know, so there can be a kind of working together here to modulate that Venus with Saturn. But certainly there could be a sense of disconnect. I mean, you know, Jupiter and Mars are rulers of Aries, and when they arrive in May, there is going to be this epic stellium I want to just come here, moving fast to cope, trying to find that hit of pleasure to cope with the feeling of disconnection may be some of the downsides this week, and especially in the middle of eclipse season, where things are strange and fantastic and dreamy, riding from one pleasure to the next. I know I was doing that yesterday. I was kind of eating a little bit, eating into the dreaminess, and so I blew up my diets a little bit. That's okay. I give myself a break on that. But this is kind of the Venus and Aries impulse as a coping mechanism to confront the disconnection without the aspects with the rulers of Aries in this first basically 10 days of Venus in Aries. And let me go to the next slide. The context here is that Aries becomes a central focus in May, June, and July. All right, there's a rare transiting stellium. It's a midweek. I think it's May 25th, 26th-ish. You'll have the moon, you'll have Mars, you'll have Jupiter, and you'll have Venus, 4 traditional planets joining in Aries with the moon activating. And so this is now beginning. That story of your Aries sector is now beginning. And it's begun because we had the Sun and Mercury running through Aries already, but this particular setup in late May now has the first planet that's arrived. And that's Venus. And so you might want to look this week, what's happening in your Aries sector, what new passions or energies are moving and unfolding now, because that's going to, like I said, this late May moment where there's the stellium will be one climax of it. But remember, Venus will leave, but Jupiter and Mars stay until 5 July. It's 24 May when Mars enters Aries and until 5 July. And so we'll have 6 weeks of Mars and Jupiter in Aries, chilling, hanging out, doing cool stuff. And, I would get really excited about this because we've had long periods this year with no fire in the sky. We've had long periods, years, without Jupiter in a fire sign, where it does very well. And we haven't had Mars. We had Mars in Sagittarius earlier in the year. We had a dignified Mars in Capricorn. So we've had some nice martial strength. Mars in Pisces is strong. But Mars comes in to add this kind of fire side to Mars, the movement outward that Mars can bring. And so it really sets up potency for decision-making and action and maneuvering in the outer world. And that begins this week with Venus front-running things. So what I have here, one thing I just want to say here, Venus will be tempted, I think, here this week to kind of grasp around, or flit is the verb I have here, because it's waiting for that support. And the analogy I was thinking of, let's say you arrive early to a party. Has that ever happened to you? No one's there yet, or there's a few people, maybe you don't know very many people, and you're kind of there early, and it's like a little uncomfortable, and you may want to just kind of rush to try to find someone to talk to, or just kind of go right to the juice bar, or the what is it the punch bowl, get a big thing of punch and maybe eat some crackers and just kind of distract yourself, because no one's really there, maybe you're not that comfortable yet. So that can be kind of the risk. We're kind of, with Venus here, looking for a kind of a flighty Venus, grasping for short-term pleasures as a way to kind of stabilize the discomfort of eclipse season. We're in the land between eclipses, but of Venus and Aries as well. And those kind of ill-considered pleasures often backfire. It's like, satisfy me now. If that becomes the mantra, often that ends in dissatisfaction, because these ill-considered choices are hollow, right? They may be hollow. Or even it's just the mentality. It's like if what feels good is the top priority, life will pretty quickly evaporate in meaning, because most of life is not what feels good, right? It's doing what doesn't feel good. And there's this kind of yin-yang style balance that's required, where it's like, okay, I'm going to delay that gratification, or I'm going to work for something now to wait for some pleasure. It's like saving for a trip, or saving for, an item you want to purchase. In order to really get the item, there's going to have to be work and delay and foregoing other things. Venus in Aries does not want to forego things that have an immediate gratifying feeling. So this is sort of the downside this week. So watch for that. Watch for a tendency to maybe move into things and just say, fuck it. This would be the attitude. I rarely curse here, but there's something called the fuck it's. You hear this about, someone has a case of the fuck it's, where it's just fuck everything, fuck it, and just do what you want when you want it. And that can end in consequences and having to repair things and destroying things, So anyhow, that's to end the Venus and Aries part of this talk on that note. But let's just shift here. That's kind of my Venus and Aries story here. Let's shift. I want to come back now to actually, quickly, I want to go back to Venus and Aries. There is Mercury in Gemini. I forgot about that. And Mercury in Gemini and Venus and Aries do make a sextile. And so there is a sextile tree here where you have two sextiles and a trine between Mercury in Gemini, Saturn in Saturn in Aquarius. So these two very powerful air planets in this chart, and then Venus and Aries sextiling both of them. And so I do think this does tell us, like, instead of acting from the place of passion, maybe coming into the head as a way to modulate. Say, maybe is that like use a rational modality. Is this going to be good for me? Think things through. Might be, and that's both Saturn and Mercury. Saturn is looking into the future and the longer term effects or ramifications of something, and the thinking is certainly Mercury. So you can use Saturn and Mercury to help with that Venus. And Mercury strong in Gemini, getting ready to go retrograde, but still strong here this week. So okay, I forgot, I had to mention that Mercury in Gemini. It's an important part of the configurations to Venus in Aries this week, and I think it can be utilized for good. Okay, let's come back here to the next chart here. Now I'm all the way to Saturday. I'm just kind of skipping through the week. We'll have the moon in Taurus, where it was eclipsing the sun. Now we have the moon in Gemini with Mercury in Gemini. And then the moon here on Thursday, 1 in the morning, I believe, 1:05 a.m. on Thursday, the moon comes into Cancer. And I like that the moon is with Mercury in Gemini before Mercury goes retrograde. I think there's real Gemini opportunities this week in the Gemini sector of your chart, starting on a Monday at about noon and going into Thursday about 1 a.m. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday feel pretty mercurial to me, and in the best of ways, where you have this powerful Mercury in Gemini and the moon intermixing. You might want to use this. It's a young waxing moon. I know it's eclipse season, but if you have to do, and I'll say this here, by the way, I'm glad this has come up. Back your stuff up, guys, gals, and folks, because Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde next week, and in between eclipses, and this is the final week I'm doing it. I'm organizing files, clearing the desk off, and getting the files backed up before Mercury stations retrograde. But this Gemini moon, Tuesday and Wednesday this week, great chance to do that, to get to back things up and do the planning and the prepping for Mercury retrograde. Or if you have to do some action between eclipses, let's say you're forced into an election, this could be an opportunity with Mercury so powerful with the moon. You do have Mars squaring from Pisces, which is why I did not pick this as my transit of the week. But still, I like it, notwithstanding that Mars, just to clear things off, these kind of prepping for Mercury retrograde. Great chart to do this with the moon in Gemini. Maybe find it in the earlier, later degrees. Try to get it not having that exact square from Mars. So let's come back here. This is the transit of the week, the Cancer moon. And I pushed it here to Saturday at 10 in the morning in Central Europe. This chart with the Cancer moon 26 degrees of Cancer, because it's applying here. So this is the 28 degrees of Cancer. It's applying to Jupiter. And you got the moon rising and making an application to Jupiter in this chart, very close. And you can either use the early degrees, the moon will apply to Venus in those early degrees, or it applies to Jupiter in the later degrees. I picked Jupiter just because Jupiter is stronger in Pisces, and I like that overcoming trine from Jupiter to the moon. But I think that square from Venus and Aries certainly can add potency to the moon and be a nice touch if you want to go with the moon in earlier degrees, depending on your location, what kind of ascendant or midheaven connection you can get with the moon. So let me just come back here. Let me kind of refocus. I'm sort of all over the place. This is a Cancer moon that is overcome by both Venus and Jupiter. So a sign-based square from Venus and Aries. Earlier in the zodiac, Venus is overcoming the moon, and then Jupiter and Pisces overcoming the moon from from earlier in zodiacal order. So this is a very lovely moon with both benefics flooding this Cancer moon. It's a waxing moon. So there's a sense of expansion here. And the moon is not relying on other rulers. It's ruling itself by domicile. So that's quite lovely. Now there is Black Moon Lilith there. This is a slower moon, which may change our experience of this. And this Black Moon Lilith has been here for months. It's been in this sector of the zodiac for a long time. So we've had slow moons. All of these Cancer moons have been slower. And it means that maybe we have to wait longer. If we're going to do an election like this, it might take a while for the results to emerge. But that's certainly something to keep in mind. I was looking with someone this week at an election they have to do something during eclipse season, and that Black Moon Lilith placement was important in deciding where to use, what degrees to put the moon in Cancer here. So let me come back. I know I'm just kind of all over the place. Sorry, let me just settle here a little bit, just kind of reorient, get some themes here. I guess one other thing I just want to say is the moon will perfect a trine to Mars in those middle degrees of Cancer rather. So trying to get the moon in early Cancer or later Cancer is what I would recommend. That way the moon isn't applying to Mars or isn't carrying the light of Mars, even though it is carrying. So let's see here. So basically get the moon close to these benefic planets, making aspects to these benefic planets would be my advice. So let me come back here. The good news, and this is why in my electional systems, if you avoid hard aspect to the malefic planets, even though the moon may be carrying Mars's light here into the application to the trine with Jupiter, it's a trine and from Mars, and that's a little bit easier than a square would be. All right, sorry, let me just pause. In electional astrology, there's so many factors, and I'm like moving through a lot of stuff in my mind right now in terms of, and for this video, it's not really about like the techniques of electional astrology and breaking down all of those factors and conveying them in this video. So that's why I'm kind of moving fast and like saying little bits of things here without stopping and saying, all right, here's the 5 factors that I would pick in an election, and really breaking that down. I just don't think that's the place in this particular video. So let me just know the Cancer moon's the best moon. Try to get it late degrees or early degrees. I think that principle can be workable for you. So let me come back. The idea here is that we're in eclipse season, right? Already changed. The nodes are lunar nodes. It's the path of the moon, so it's connecting us to the moon and the sun. Eclipses are solar lunar in that it's the moon and the sun's path that cross, and it's the moon and the sun that are the actors in eclipses. Pardon me, and including the Earth. So that's a change accelerator, eclipse season. The waxing cycle of the moon, the moon itself is change. It's always moving, growing big and small and big and small. But we have a waxing phase, and maybe starting new things, changing things to grow things, or to create things anew. And so I kind of like when you have the land between eclipses being a waxing cycle, because it implies we can use the eclipse currents to kind of move into something new. There's a sense of growth that eclipse season is providing us. It's additive. And what I have here is the theme. It's like settling into a new home, right? The new post-eclipse season home, or an Airbnb that you adjust to after a few days, or an apartment or house. Let's say you moved into a new space. It can take a few days to make it your own. And I think this Cancer moon is a great time to do that. And not only that, thinking about what kind of reformations. So there's certainly purgative feature to eclipses, but then also, so letting go things, but what are you adding? What new arrangements are you bringing in? What new item of furniture do you bring in to make the place more comfortable and settle into it in a more, so it's homey and comfortable for you? These kind of additive qualities that bring and provide comfort. This moon can support that. And you might want to consider how the changes of eclipse season, what are you adding? What are you letting go of? Where are you growing in? What are you growing into? That's the energy and theme of this Cancer moon. And I'm going to shift here because I want to come in to the final chart, which is the same day. And this will be, let me see, the time of the election I picked was 10 a.m. I got the moon rising here and very close to Jupiter, applying to Jupiter. But so hours later, a mere 2 hours or less than 2 hours later, you do have Mars and the Sun perfecting that sextile. And it relates to what I was just saying about the Cancer moon and the additive component of comfort or a new place that you move into. Sometimes it's like, no, I don't want that furnished apartment. Give it unfurnished so I can put all my stuff in. Or if you have a furnished apartment, you ask the landlord, hey, take this out. Let me put this in. Mars and the Sun sextiling. Mars in Taurus, 16 degrees of Taurus. The Sun 16 degrees of Taurus and Mars 16 degrees of Pisces. They are making the sextile in the two houses that are the major players of the eclipse, Taurus and Pisces. And you have the two fire planets, the Sun as the light of consciousness and the perceiver and the power to kind of assent and to say yes. Mars is the physical manifestation of the solar decision making. You move it in with an action, the force of action. So, and Mars and the Sun rule Aries. They're very friendly to each other, I think, even though they're of different sects. S-E-C-T-S. One's of the day sect, one's of the night sect. In the sign of Aries, they both rule. And so there's one sector of the zodiac where these two planets actually are, brothers in arms, you might say. Martial pun intended. But we come back here, Mars in Pisces is strong in terms of the triplicity rulership that it has here, especially in these later degrees, which will happen this week and into next week and into the rest of May. You're going to have a very powerful Mars in these last degrees. But I like this because what I was just saying about the kind of additive, expansive quality of that moon in Cancer, well, you have Mars and the Sun commingling here in an auspicious flowing way to add a bit of active decision making to whatever these changes are going to be for you during the eclipse season. And let me see here, what else do I have here? I've got the Sun is near the North Node. That itself can be sort of destabilizing, and Mars is here to ground, maybe focus on what's the goal, what is true, Pisces, and what actions are we taking as to embody truth, Mars and Pisces, sextiling that Sun as it gets strange near that North Node and maybe corrupted, you might say. Corrupted not in a way of like, oh, evil, but corrupted just in that it needs help, what it thought was going to happen isn't happening and it needs help to cope. Mars and Pisces can be that teammate to assist the Sun in this time of need here. I have a martial push. But this is the thing I wanted to talk about, the context of this week and of these three houses. Pisces, Aries, and Taurus are very, very important over the next month. And it's reflected here in the domicile tree because you have the Sun in Taurus ruled by Venus and Aries ruled by Mars and Pisces ruled by Jupiter and Pisces. And so the domicile tree in this chart in particular, the Cancer moon, Mercury in Gemini and Saturn in Aquarius are all doing their own thing on an island. And then you have Taurus, Aries, and Pisces as a flow from Taurus to Pisces. And so these three houses are commingled. They're connected through the rulership tree. And what I wanted to kind of get our minds around is that Mars in Pisces rules the lunar eclipse on May 14th. Then we have a stellium in late May in Aries. So Neptune remains in Pisces, but nothing else stays there. Jupiter will leave Pisces, Mars will leave Pisces. Now Jupiter comes back, so we're not completely done with Pisces in terms of the 7 traditional planets in 2022. We have this Pisces story reemerges, but just over this next summer, it's a pile up in Aries. Jupiter will be in Aries all summer. Mars is in Aries until 7 July, and then Mars enters Taurus, and there will be a massive conjunction, Uranus, Mars in the North Node, right about where the Sun is. It's at 18 degrees. The Sun will be at 16 degrees here on Saturday as it sextiles Mars. But there's something connecting these three houses in the story of the summer. And so I would encourage you, this is more of a point where you can kind of back calculate here in your own nativity. Where is your Aries sector? Where's your Taurus sector? And where's your Pisces sector? What are the house topics? Because now we're deeply engaged here already in the narrative of the summers. The summer's themes are arriving now very fast. And I think that, so coming back to this aspect, Mars pushing the Sun in Taurus from Pisces, I think gives us a sense of engaging this Taurus Aries story and Pisces story already now. You know, think about what you want to be doing in June, July, August. Where are you going to be? How does that relate to this part of your chart in terms of house topics? And I think this is a way to kind of utilize astrology, the symbolic matrix, the symbol set as it's activating, to plan and look ahead in your life and get out in terms of a mental kind of visioning around certain house topics. So I'll just do an example here. Let's say you're a Leo rising. This is the Leo rising in the chart example I have here. So where I am, it will be Leo rising when the Sun and Mars perfect a sextile. But so if you're a Leo rising, and Marilyn Monroe is a Leo rising, I was looking at her chart this week because that new documentary is out. Eclipses were happening in her 10th house of reputation, and then her 8th house of endings. And there's a new documentary all about her passing. So it's perfect example, her chart, of how eclipses activate themes in our lives based on the house topics of our nativity. Beautiful, beautiful chart example. But so let's go with Leo rising here. You might want to be thinking about right now other people's money, shared resources. That's Pisces. How has that been a part of your eclipse story? But we're now moving into 9th house, which is like your vision of the outer world, your maybe worldviews is my favorite keyword, because it could be religious, publishing, higher ideas, communicating ideas, or teaching, religious, occultism, esotericism. All of the higher worldview parts of our lives come into the 9th house. So that would be the theme, the resource component, the shared resources or endings, the higher philosophy, worldview component, and then your career. Those are the major themes in your reputation right now, all summer. And the way that these transits are flowing through these 3 houses, it's worth considering all of those house topics this week as we now move into this major area of Aries. And, so anyhow, this is just one quick example how I would engage it. We could see in Marilyn's chart, we know it's all about her passing and then her reputation as a result of her passing. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Let's shift out and get one card here before let's close with a card pull. I wanna throw a card. I wanna see what the card is going to be. Okay, 28, let's see what card that is. This is okay, 1 second. Give me a second here. 28 is okay, it's the Page of Hearts. Pisces. Love it. Well, I just think it's worth mentioning and coming back to the idea that Venus in Pisces ruled the first eclipse, the solar eclipse in Taurus, and Mars in Pisces rules the second eclipse, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. The page is a symbol of youth, of stops and starts, the shifting, kind of changing grounds of as we begin anew, and so you might want to give yourself permission to fail, to learn, to change mentality, to switch horses in midstream. There's good sense in that sometimes. And thinking about Pisces just as a larger theme, I was saying earlier, Mars in Pisces is being movement and action towards some kind of higher truth. What's your higher truth? Maybe that's something to just think about. What if I were to ask you, hey, what do you live? What is your code, your life code? That's what I would be contemplating seeing this card. What is the code of behavior or morals or ethics or beliefs that is motivating your life right now? And you may want to you don't have to have an answer to it, but maybe you do. Maybe you can put in 1 or 2 sentences. This is what I want to embody as a kind of truth, the truth that I try to embody every day. And what is it? And that might help these stops and starts and getting through periods where things are less maybe realized. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. This is the Weekly Tarot, the Weekly Astrology. Have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Great to see you. Great to be here. Peace. Talk soon. Bye-bye.